The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power in the creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. We got a fantastic program, great stories, great folks to talk to. Our guest coming up in the second segment, we're going to be talking with Trevor Swenson, the CEO of Dynamic Talent International, one of these really fantastic talent agents who's accomplished so much in this industry, super well respected, super experienced, and lately has been one of the forerunners in helping bring K-pop to America and really bringing it onto some of the most important venues here in the U.S., helping expand the genre's influence, making it such a mammoth musical force here in the U.S. I'm excited to talk to him all about that and seeing what lessons we can learn as independent creators from the great work he's done. That's going to be fantastic. I can't wait for that. From what I have been told from his publicity team and from other folks in this industry, he's a fun hang. And so I'm excited to bring him in and just chat with him all about that. And speaking of people who are just fun hangs, viewers and listeners, our co-host this week, always a joy when this gentleman's around for us. Zach Sloan is here. Hey, Zach.
Ryan, I appreciate being called a good hang. That is how I get most of my gigs as a musician.
It is an underrated skill, right? Like, obviously technical proficiency is important and, punctuality is great, but the artists who keep getting the gigs again and again, they're good hangs, and an underappreciated asset for any music professional.
Be a nice person, be on time, and know what you're doing, and you're usually going to be fine.
And, in your case, having a fantastic set of locks on your head doesn't hurt either.
You know what? These hair plugs for men, and I'm very, very blessed.
I'm excited for the show this week, Zach. But before we get into the substantive material, I want to talk to you about a rather wild experience I had recently. I had a nice little anniversary excursion with my wife. We went to a hotel in our area, just to do the anniversary thing, get away from the kids. And
by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. 9 years going strong and loving every minute of it. But while I was on this otherwise wonderful little trip, I came across an experience that just brought out every boomer style Andy Rooney kind of complaint about how the world is changing.
Right.
And wanted to just kind of share with you this wild experience I had. So the morning of us checking out of this hotel, the first thing I did is what many people do when they are in a final day of a hotel, is get that late checkout. We all want the late checkout, right? Mm-hmm. And particularly nowadays, because I feel like when we were younger pups, Zach, the checkout time was always noon. Yeah. Noon was the line, right? But a lot of hotels today, they're kind of chipping away at that, right? You're seeing a lot more 11 a.m. checkouts now, and I don't like it. I don't like this kind of change, but that's not even the change I'm angry about. But nonetheless, this hotel had an 11 a.m. checkout. We were going to try to push that back a little bit. And so I do what I always do. I pick up that 1990s hotel phone that every hotel room has, right? It's still the same one. It's got the little button that says front desk, so you don't even have to dial the number for the front desk. They haven't changed those phones in forever. Some things don't change. So I hit the little front desk button, and instead of being greeted by a front desk professional at this hotel, I get greeted by an AI service. Welcome to Front Desk AI, your AI solution.
What
please,
kind of crap?
I know. And I was like, please tell me how I can help you. And what I should have said was, you can help me by having me speak with a human being. I'm not going to talk about my hotel needs with ChatGPT right now. But I was like, let me see if I can sweet talk the machine here.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'd like a late checkout, please. And it went, boop, 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 boop. We're sorry, we cannot grant late checkouts at this time. Goodbye. And so like I didn't get a chance to work any of my negotiating magic, because when I try to get a late checkout at a hotel, right, I'm gonna spin a yarn. I'm gonna use my law degree. I'm gonna do a little negotiation. But the machine's not having it, right? So I was like, okay. And at this point, like I'm gonna try to find a solution for this. So I dial the AI front desk again, and when it asks me how it can help, I'm not going to try to ask for a late checkout. I say, I'd like to talk with a human, please. And it's like, okay, boop, 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 boop. And then it takes me to a human, but the human is not the hotel front desk. It's a damn call center, probably on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And so now I'm talking with the call center, and I say, may I have a late checkout? And they go, we're sorry, this hotel, because it wasn't our hotel, this hotel does not allow for late checkouts. And then I hang up. And at this point, look, I don't even need the late checkout, right? It's just me and my wife. We don't have like a bunch of kids' clothes to pack up. We could absolutely get out of there by 11 a.m. But now at this point, it's about the principle of the thing. Because it used to be, you just called the front desk, you could lie to them about you needing more time to get out because like your taxi is late or something, and then you get your late checkout by talking to a real human who works at the hotel. But now they got me going through AI BS, call centers in Bangalore, like, no. And so now I got to like put on my pants and walk down to the front desk, because like if I'm going to get denied my extra 60 minutes to get out of the hotel, it is going to be by a W-2 employee at that hotel.
And I love that we all know that all of this was happening when you were not wearing pants. Continue.
Of course. Naturally. And so, and like, I'm all ready to like get into a fight, right? Because like, it's pretty clear they're trying to put up barriers in between me and getting this precious late checkout. But I walk right up to the front. I say, and I got a whole speech ready, right? Like, I'd like a late checkout. It is very, and they, and the moment I say I'd like a late checkout, they go, absolutely. Is 1 o'clock okay? I go, yes, that's fine. Thank you very much. And, type a few things on the keyboard, and they give me the 1 p.m. late checkout. Which, by the way, I would have been fine with noon. But like, I've never felt like just more upset about how my world is changing. Like, I got to talk to an AI and a call center. You're going to put all these barriers in front of me. Like, whatever happened to just being able to call the front desk and lie to them about why you need a late checkout?
Well, I think you've already answered the questions. It is just their way of trying to squeeze you out, right? The employee, because they also know, right, having worked in the service industry somewhat and know a lot of people who do, they know that the employees at the desk don't give a crap. And they're like, whatever. Just don't don't tell my boss and I'll give you a 3 p.m. late checkout. I don't care. And so they're trying to put up barriers. And what better way to do that than with a robot? And this is have you ever tried to call like Comcast to get something done, or whatever your internet service provider is?
Oh, absolutely not.
They try to make it impossible for you to actually talk to somebody. Come on.
With Comcast, like if something is broken with my cable or internet with Comcast, I'm just resolved to letting it stay broke. Like, I guess I'm just not having cable anymore, because I'm not about to try to navigate. Like, if the late checkout labyrinth of this hotel is like its own layer of hell, it is a much deeper layer of hell to get so much as like a Comcast technician to come out to your house. But like, I don't know what's happening with the world. I don't know why we have to do all these things. And like, I've never felt more like Andy Rooney baby boomer than I do right now from just that whole experience. And at that point, it was just about the principle. But anyway, other than that, it was a lovely time. And yes, congrats. Really, the congratulations goes to my wife for just being able to tolerate me for 9 years. Like, an anniversary in our household is not a celebration for the two of us. It's really just a celebration for her for just making it through another year with this particular spouse.
I'll tell you, that's what my wife tells me every anniversary.
That's
just a word straight from her mouth. You know what this is? She's like, I'm toasting to myself for not killing you.
This is my day.
Yeah, this is a testament to my wife's patience. It's usually
I mean, I can't even tell you though, Zach, that the hotel checkout labyrinth is the thing that's annoying me most. Really, the balance of my ire lately is almost exclusively reserved for federal copyright judges, which have somehow managed to make me so angry again. Because this as we all know from this show, it is no secret that I'm not a fan of like copyright cases where cases that are barely a copyright issue get allowed to get way too far into the court process. They extract settlements from artists, and songs that like aren't really that similar wind up having to go to a jury, could actually lose in court, and artists lose lots of money. And meanwhile, my clients have to pay more in copyright insurance because of all these frivolous lawsuits. And so I thought lately, Zach, that we had turned the corner on this, right? Ed Sheeran won his copyright jury trial. We had a case recently where Vince Vance lost to Mariah Carey after alleging that her song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, infringed on his song that was also called All I Want for Christmas Is You, when the only two things that those songs had in common was literally the title All I Want for Christmas Is You. Like the melodies weren't the same, the lyrics weren't really the same. Nobody would confuse these two songs for each other. And the court laughed that case out. And so I started to feel optimistic again. Okay, courts are fighting back, right? They saw what happened with the Blurred Lines case. They saw that that wasn't good for the music industry. They saw that we need a better, more common sense approach to music copyright law. And certainly we should now be living in a world where if two songs have only one thing in common, and that thing is literally just the title and nothing else is in common, we're not going to say that that's copyright infringement. We're going to laugh that case out of court. Well, unfortunately, we seem to be backsliding a bit because on April 29th, a federal appeals court has revived, unfortunately, a copyright infringement lawsuit against Sam Smith and Normani over their hit single Dancing with a Stranger. So what happened was we have this song from 2015 by an artist named Jordan Vincent called Dancing with Strangers. Not the Sam Smith song Dancing with a Stranger. This is a 2015 song, Dancing with Strangers. And the copyright holding company in this case for the 2015 song is called Sound and Color. Sound and Color sues Sam Smith and Normani and says, your song is infringing on our songs. And I invite our viewers and listeners to listen to the two songs. You know, listen to them side by side, back to back, however you do. And you will come to find, well, hopefully what I did, that the only thing that these songs have in common is these similar titles. And the fact that both of the songs have the phrase dancing with and strangers somewhere in the lyrics, in the chorus. But the melodies aren't the same. The lyrics aren't really the same. Nobody's going to confuse these songs for each other. Case in point, like if the first song was named something other than Dancing with Strangers, nobody would ever think that these two songs are substantially similar. And so a lower court saw this and said, yep, this is ridiculous. We're throwing this case out. This case should never go before a jury because it would just be so bad for the system that a case like this actually makes it all the way through the court system and costs Sam Smith and Normani probably millions of dollars in attorney's fees. This case is ridiculous. And so the lower court threw it out, but now you have an appeals court that says, not so fast. You know, maybe if we squint at it the right way, we can find some similarities. We're going to make you have to take this case to a jury. We are overturning the lower court that kicked your case out. We're saying a jury has to decide this. And that's what the Ninth Circuit said on April 29th. So now this ridiculous copyright claim is going to go before a jury. It's probably going to cost Sam Smith and Normani 7 figures in legal fees to defend. And I feel like we're backsliding again. We're back to this world where, you know, almost anything is copyright infringement and it hurts artists in the process.
Well, it reminds me of a Brad Paisley song where he cracks a joke about how there's a Carrie Underwood song that reminds him of a poem his brother wrote in 3rd grade. And so he sues her. And like, but that song was a joke and this is reality. Well, I guess that I think one question I get a lot, Ryan, and I think you're in the best position to answer this, is how does this appellate process work? If a case is dismissed, why is it that sometimes a federal court will then look back and say, nope, never mind, this needs to go to a jury? Can you explain that thought process?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, in this case, it's all federal, right? Because this is copyright law. And so copyright law is the exclusive domain of federal courts. When you bring a federal case, the first place it goes to is what's called the district court. This is the lower level trial judge. And one of the things that trial judge is going to look at is, and so that case isn't just going to go straight to a jury, right? The first thing the federal judge is going to look at is say, is there enough of a genuine issue here of material fact that we have to let a jury decide this fact? And in this case, the fact being whether the 2015 song is being infringed by the more recent Sam Smith Normani hit Dancing with a Stranger. And that court looked at the case law and listened to these two songs and said, yeah, there's not enough here. These two songs are pretty much different in almost every way, other than a similar title. But, God, a similar title can't be enough for copyright infringement, or else, so many songs would be copyright infringing. And said, there's not enough here. No jury should be finding this to be copyright infringement. We're going to throw this out. But whenever a judge makes a ruling like that, you can always appeal it. And so when you when you bring a case on the West Coast, you appeal it to the Ninth Circuit, which is the appeals court above that trial court. And that appeals court, they didn't say, yes, this new song absolutely infringed on the old song. But what they said was, it's enough of a close case that you have to let a jury decide. And the problem with that, Zach, is I know a lot of people are like, well, what's the problem with letting a jury decide,
Wait
right?
a minute. Didn't the lower court say this is not a close case?
Yeah, no, the lower court said not even close. And then the appellate court said close enough that we have to let a jury decide. And when it comes to copyright law, that is like that's the real question, right? Is whether you win on summary judgment is basically whether or not you win the case. Because once it goes to summary judgment, the defendant knows, okay, this is going to be a case that's, instead of costing me $100,000 to $250,000 to defend, this is now going to cost me $1 million to $2 million to defend, because a jury trial is long and painful and expensive and comes with the risk that, juries, being the most unstable force in the world, might actually find infringement, because, as I've often said, I could lock a jury in a room and play Minnie Riperton and Slayer to them, and if you leave them in there long enough, they'll start to find similarities. Mm-hmm. And so, most at this point now they're starting to think settlement, right? It's going to be cheaper to just pay these people off, make them go away. We don't want to risk being the next Robin Thicke Blurred Lines having to pay a $10 million verdict. And, so once you say it has to go to a jury, the defendant has lost. And so that's why you can't just say, oh, what's the big deal? Let it go to a jury. Let a jury decide. No, because it's not going to get to the jury. It rarely gets to the jury. It's going to settle, and it's going to settle for a lot of money, because you don't want to risk it going to a jury. And every time you get one of those big settlements, every time that the defendant loses on a frivolous case, everybody else's copyright insurance rates go up. Every other creator has to start looking over their shoulder now, being afraid that their song is going to be the next song that somebody else goes after for copyright infringement. And that hurts future creativity.
And can you explain a little bit about how this interplay, first of all, let's back up, because I think some people may not know. What do you mean when you say summary judgment? Let's get civil procedure here.
Oh yeah, my least favorite subject.
I hated it. That's why I'm asking you the question.
I hated summary judgment, and I actually had when I was in law school, I had the legendary civil procedure professor. My Civ Pro professor was a guy named Arthur Miller, and when I tell people I had Arthur Miller, you tell a lawyer,
what?
You didn't know I had Arthur Miller for Civ Pro?
No.
Yeah, he probably wrote your textbook, because that's what he does. But he's also the reason why I hate civil procedure, because he's so mean. He was he was putting he gave me anxiety disorders. I was talking to counselors and stuff because of how mean this guy was. And so when you just mention civil procedure, I already start to sweat. But summary judgment, Zach, is when a court says, there is not enough of an issue of fact here that this case even needs to go to a jury. Me, the judge, is going to decide who wins and who loses, because it's just not up for debate. There's not enough. There's no fact issue here that a jury needs to rule on, right? Because that's what juries do. They rule on facts, right? They're the ones who determine, whether the car ran the red light or not, or whether something was negligence or not. But if there's no issue of fact because no reasonable juror could possibly find one way or the other, then a court can rule on summary judgment. And that's often how, and when it comes to copyright, that's how we want more of these cases decided. Because once it goes to a jury, basically the defendant's already lost. And that means that creativity is already lost. And so in my perfect world, Zach, and maybe this has to be done legislatively because the court system hasn't seemed to figure this out yet, is we need to create in the music copyright world a higher bar for what qualifies as something that has to go to a jury, right? It can't just be substantial similarity, which is the existing standard. It needs to be like a higher standard such that the only stuff that gets to go before a jury is stuff where the similarity is so slap you in the face obvious that, it rises to that level of infringement. It can't just be that a few notes are the same or the groove is the same, which is what you often heard in that Blurred Lines Robin Thicke case, right? A similar groove, a similar vibe, right? Yeah. Because if that's all it takes to get it to a jury, now you're asking juries to be art critics, to be musicologists, to be pop culture and music experts and try to tell us like whether two songs are similar enough that it rises to the level of copyright infringement. That's a lot to ask of juries. That doesn't seem like a particularly fun thing for them to do. And the stakes couldn't be higher because it's the difference between, as a defendant, having to pay $0 and potentially pay millions of dollars and potentially ending your music career. And if you're signed to a record label, if you get nailed for copyright infringement, the record label is going to hit you with an indemnification clause, which means you might have to pay the record label's attorney's fees. Like, it could get really, really nasty really, really quick. And so in the name of preserving creativity, we need a better system for this. And for those of you who think that that I'm not being respectful enough of copyright law and other people's property, you need to understand that the point of copyright law is not to have property rights that are as strong as possible, right? Yes, we need copyright law. We need to protect people's creations because by protecting people's creations, we encourage people to create work, right? And we want people to make art because the world is a better place when we have more art in it. But if the goal is to create as much art as possible in this world, having copyright law that is too strict can have the opposite effect, right? Because if you make the law too strict, if you make too many things copyright infringement, then people don't want to make future work because they're afraid of getting sued for copyright infringement because God forbid the titles of two songs are similar. And so now future work gets hurt, future creativity gets hurt, and we all benefit, we all receive less art to enjoy. So it's a balance. And right now the balance is tilted too far in the direction of hurting future work at the expense of protecting prior work.
I mean, and this is the type of chilling effect, right, that you can find in Supreme Court opinions dealing with the First Amendment regularly, right? We try to avoid these types of chilling effects. Obviously, this is a different ball game. I think one other thing I want to talk about, though, is that you brought up the point of you don't want jurors to be, musicologists, and
Right.
I can already hear some of. Because I used to litigate, and I can already hear people in the circles I used to run in. Well, that's why you have witnesses to testify, to educate them, blah blah blah. Again, that shifts the financial burden to the person defending their copyright, right? They have to pay for those witnesses, those expert witnesses that are not cheap, to then testify. So by allowing this and putting these barriers in place, the trial, as you said, is impossibly expensive for most people. Right? Yeah. This is this is a criticism I have of our American legal system since the time when I first started practicing. The cost of defending yourself from a BS claim is it's so detrimental. And that's why you see people settling all the time.
And I love that you bring up the musicologist, right? Because you are correct that in every copyright infringement lawsuit, both sides will bring in their musicologist experts. And I kind of like it because it's sort of like mean, as a musicologist, like what else do you get to do for a living but like teach music or teach musicology at a college or be an expert witness in a copyright infringement case? But in terms of like the value it provides in litigation and the value that it provides for juries, it's not much, because if you watch any copyright infringement trial, all you get is one side that brings in a musicologist that goes, oh yeah, these songs aren't similar at all. Like there's nothing here. Like in my expert opinion as a musicologist, there is no musicological elements that are similar here. And then the other side brings in an expert that says, oh my God, these songs are musicologically identical. And so like what use is that? And none of us have enough background in musicology to know like one way or another why these songs are similar. And so it's just annoying. And then it just goes to a jury that aren't musicologists that just like, basically shake a magic 8-ball to decide whether or not the defendant's going to pay $0 or $10 million.
Which is a better system than actually allowing a jury trial. Maybe from now on, Ryan, we just put a magic 8-ball in every district court, and you go there and you both sides stand there. There's a designated shaker, and that's who wins.
I kind of like this, and we can televise it. Yeah.
Yes. And DraftKings could get involved, and you could take bets. Like, let's do this, because getting into the cost of litigation, getting into battles of the experts, it's the artists who lose every single time.
At this point, I'm not sure it's a worse system. I don't think just flipping a coin is any less just than what we're doing now, which is just like the copyright law and how we litigate it just varies from court to court, from circuit to circuit, from jury to jury. It's not clear to me why the Vince Vance case, where the only two things that were the same were the title of the song, gets thrown out and laughed out of court, and the attorneys who brought the case might get sanctioned. And this case, where the two titles seem to be the similar thing about the song, and that case is going to go before a jury. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. Before we go to break, I do have a listener question, and I have resolved lately, Zach, that I'm trying to be better about answering listener questions. They pile up, and I'm trying to not be so negligent about taking the time to answer the questions of listeners that take the time to write us. And so
you have a duty to answer those questions.
I do.
Joke.
Now we've moved to a different first-year law school course by going into torts. Well, you'll like this one, Zach, because this question is actually going to take us to yet another first-year law school course, contract law.
Oh, I hated that.
The question is as follows. Hi, Ryan. I am hiring a photographer to take photos of me for the day. I'm paying them $1,000 for the day plus their expenses. I got their contract today, and it says that if I cancel the shoot, I have to pay them a $2,000 cancellation fee. I'm worried about that. What if I get sick or the weather is bad that day? What can I do? So now we're like going into contract law. We're basically doing a whole first-year law school curriculum here in the first segment of Break the Business. And this is an interesting one.
Brian?
Yeah?
You know how your civil procedure professor gave you like anxiety?
Yeah.
My contract professor was the one that tried to give us anxiety. Unfortunately, he didn't realize that none of us really gave a crap about him. So screw you. Continue, sir.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. And of course, I'll preface it the way we always preface it. I'm a lawyer. Zach's a lawyer. We're not your lawyer. Your situation is unique. Talk to a lawyer to advise you on your specific legal situation. But here are a couple things that you might want to think about in a situation like this. So when a contract spells out what you have to do in terms of damages if you were to breach the contract, which you would by, not showing up for your photo shoot, that's what we call in the legal world a liquidated damages clause. So normally you breach a contract, the court has to calculate what the damages are based on what harm the non-breaching party suffered. But sometimes the parties can just agree in the contract what that damage is. If you don't do this, then you have to pay this. And you can put that right in the contract. And generally, liquidated damages clause like the one in this contract are usually enforceable as long as they are reasonable. One of the things that you can't have is a liquidated damages clause that the law would deem a penalty clause, which is if the liquidated damages fee, that cancellation fee in your case, is so excessive that it is no longer a reasonable estimate of the actual harm that the photographer suffered, then a court might not enforce that cancellation fee. So in this case, what is the photographer supposed to get out of this deal? $1,000, and you have to cover their expenses. So we ask ourselves, is a $2,000 cancellation fee a reasonable estimate of the harm that photographer suffered if you're a no-show? I'm not sure. I don't know how much a photographer's expenses are, but I mean, to think that those think that the photographer's expenses would be $1,000 in addition to the $1,000 that you'd have to pay that photographer. That seems like it might be an excessive fee. If I were in that artist situation, and you let me know if you see this one differently, Zach, if you're looking for just kind of a quick way to just resolve this without having a bunch of lawyers fight over it, I'd talk to the photographer and be like, look, I talked to a lawyer friend of mine. That friend of mine thinks that $2,000 fee might not be enforceable, might mess up this contract. So can you do me a favor? Just take that out so that we don't have any potential problems with this contract. I'm otherwise fine with it. Let's move forward and see what they do there. I'm guessing that photographer put that in there because they got burned once before, right? Behind every liquidated damages clause is a person who got burned in the past and they don't want to get burned again. So if you talk to that photographer, show them that you're legit, that you're not going to cancel on them. Maybe they'll take that little thing out that might not be enforceable anyway, and you can have like a peaceful experience with this photographer. What do you think, Zach?
I think there's two. I think that's a great idea. I think the other thing is to say, hey, I can't afford to do that. Can we wiggle on that number? Like, to me, it wouldn't be unreasonable if the photographer said, this contract is worth $1,000 plus expenses. If you cancel, I still get the $1,000, not my expenses, because I won't have to spend those on the shoot and all this. But the $1,000 actually sounds reasonable to me. Doubling the value of the contract minus expenses does not sound reasonable. So what I would just say is, hey, can we just negotiate that number a little bit? I'm just confused. And I've as an attorney played dumb and got people to change numbers by saying, can you just explain to me? I'm sure I'm missing something, but can you just explain to me why, if you do the shoot, it's $1,000 plus the $250 expenses or whatever, but if you don't do the shoot, it's $2,000. Just explain to me. Maybe I don't understand. And sometimes that's enough to get them to go, oh, you know what? Let's just do it for $1,000 or whatever. And then they might change their tune a little.
And how about this? Like, if that photographer is firm on that and they're just not going to wiggle with you because, they've been burned in the past and they really want to make it hurt if you cancel on them, maybe that should give you some pause about working with that photographer. Like, that's kind of them waving a red flag right in front of your face. Maybe you work with a photographer that's a little more chill because that might not be somebody who's particularly pleasant to work with.
And I mean, I also wonder if I'm assuming this is a musician or a creative type of some sort who's hiring this photographer. I'm guessing this isn't.
I'm getting that. Yeah. Like maybe an album cover shoot or something.
Yeah. And in that case,
influencer.
You don't want a person taking your pictures who has a lot of pent up rage about other clients. You need somebody who's pretty chill. And I think you make a good point on the red flag. I would chat with them. And then, maybe keep your options open. Look for other photographers in your area. And also, this is a good thing if you're doing an album cover or something like that. Like, maybe you can cut like a deal with somebody. Like, hey, you do these pictures for me. I can do some music for your website or something like that.
Barter.
You can get a little bartering going on, and then not have to pay $1,000.
I mean, first of all, like let's not discount the fact that this photographer has pent up rage. Depending on what you're trying to go for in these photos,
awesome.
Like maybe you're a death metal artist and you want like some rage in these photos. You want them to look angry. They might be going with that particular person on purpose. You never know. But interesting one. I promise, viewers and listeners, we're going to be better about answering listener questions because they do make for some pretty fun conversations. And we're going to continue the fun conversations here after the break. We got Trevor Swenson from Dynamic Talent International coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Keep checking out Break the Business.
Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida.
rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Ryan Kairalla here with Zach Sloan. Thank you for checking us out wherever you check us out, whether it is on Volume.com, our beloved streaming partner, on YouTube, Twitch, SiriusXM 145, or all major podcast platforms. We're just so glad you're taking in this show, and we're so glad you're telling a friend about us, leaving a review, what have you. Zach, well, before we bring in our guest, can you want to do a little plug for Dear Marcia? You know, you always have your Dear Marcia caption there at the bottom. Like, tell people about the cool band you're in, man.
So Dear Marcia, I've only been in the band 4 years, but they just celebrated their 30th anniversary. If you want a good time, we're just imagine like Melissa Etheridge and Willie Nelson make music. That's what we sound like. If you want a good time, head to YouTube and head to Dear Marcia Rocks. You can find clips of us playing with the we can't say the Denver Broncos marching band. We're not allowed to say that. So I'm not going to say that we played with the Denver Broncos marching band. We played with all of the members of the Denver Broncos marching band, not the Denver Broncos marching band, just all of the members. And so you can watch a video of us playing with all of the members from the Denver Broncos marching band. And it was a good time.
That is some solid legal disclaiming right there. Excellent work. All right. Looking forward to that. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week.
Travis Swanson's got the key in his hand, bringing stars to shine across the land. K-pop dreams lighting up the scene, from Seoul to the States, he's the in-between. Travis Swanson making waves, feel the beat, breaking borders where the cultures meet. With rhythm and style, he's paving the way, a music revolution starting today.
Our guest this week is the CEO of the global talent agency Dynamic Talent International. Recently, Dynamic Talent has been increasing its focus on the K-pop industry, bringing some of the genre's biggest names to historic U.S. venues, including the Grand Ole Opry and the Apollo Theater. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting dynamictalent.com. We are happy to welcome Trevor Swenson on to Break the Business. Hi, Trevor.
How you doing?
I am so happy to be chatting with you. I'm doing great. Zach's doing great. Excited to get into it. Let me ask you a little bit about your backstory before we get into some of the other material that I have here. I'm kind of interested in how you got into the industry, got into being, an agent and everything, because from what I'm reading here, you're a guy who went to school in Minnesota, so you got that Midwestern thing. How did you end up in the music industry? I don't see where you're coming from as something of an industry hotbed.
I mean, I'm going to get into that for sure, but I appreciate you guys giving me my new theme music that I'm going to walk into every single room now just from having that intro music. So that's fantastic.
Ryan Kairalla just say Minnesota is not an industry. That's where Prince is from.
Okay, yes, Prince and Trevor Swenson. All right, who else you got?
Good Lord.
I mean, Jesse the Body Ventura. Come on now. So, how I got started. I mean, I definitely do not have a music background. I was going to college and came out of college and did a little football, and then I got into the medical field and ran a chiropractic table company of all things. But during that time, I was just friends with a lot of cool bands, and kind of kept up with them, went to a lot of fun shows out of school, and 2008 hits, and the economic downturn of the world, and somebody just called and said, "Hey, do you want to start helping me book shows?" I'm like, "I don't know how to do that." And they said, "You just call venues and tell them to give me money." I go, "Okay, I'll do that."
I love that, the 2008 recession hits, the economy's on fire, and Trevor Swenson says, I need to go to the economically secure industry that is the music business. That's how I'm going to weather out this recession.
I'll tell you what, I had no idea what I was in for. I'm like, okay, but it turned out to be very easy for me to do this job, which is weird because this is a very, very hard job being a booking agent. And
why was it easy?
It just was easy. Like I have a really strong sales background, and in the nicest way possible, I'm an absolute bullshitter, so it's really easy to sell things. So it was fun calling venues, and it's kind of the thrill of the hunt. Like, hey, I got this artist. They do this great stuff. Do you want to put them in there? We can do a show. We can get some people out there. We can sell some tickets, sell some drinks, and it was a lot of fun. So with doing that, the word got out that I could sell tours really fast and do them pretty efficiently. So more bands came over. This small firm called me and offered me a job. I went and took it on this horrible deal, and then I just kind of all blossomed from there, and then went up and up, and the bands got bigger, and the genres get changed, and I started some companies, and now here we are.
Speaking of genre changes, I know that your company has made a lot of inroads in K-pop and have been instrumental in help bringing this genre to America, bringing K-pop acts to some really prominent venues here in the United States. I'm interested in how you kind of discovered K-pop for yourself. Was there a specific moment where you got exposed to K-pop and you were just like, man, K-pop has legs. There's something here. There's money to be made. There's opportunity to be had.
Wow. So this is a terrible story, and I've told it many times. It's a terrible story how I got into it. It was COVID, 2020, and I was, enjoying my time off that everybody else was enjoying. And a friend of mine called me, this guy named Adam Vance, and he's just like, hey, we're working on some stuff, and we're talking for about an hour, and then all of a sudden he goes, oh, hey, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. I go, oh, why? And he goes, well, he needs help with tours. I go, I don't know. Okay, there's no tours. The world doesn't exist right now. He's like, well, no, it's going to come back. I'm like, okay, it'll come back. So, and he introduced me to this huge name in the K-pop world. And before the call, I said, what are we going to talk about? He goes, called K-pop, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. he's like it's pop music, but it's in Korea. I go, okay. I've been to Korea, but I don't know what K-pop is. But he's like, oh, it's like BTS. I'm like, oh, okay, I know that band. And so either way, I did the call, and and now that person I did the call with is one of my dear friends, and I as in everything I do, I dove in super hard, and I researched every single thing I could about it, and during that research, I found out that there were some flaws in the way that the business was happening over in Korea, and I decided to present my ideas to the Korean market, and here we are, almost 6 years later, and we're well over, I believe, 100 tours now in the K-pop space, from stadiums all the way down to little. I'd say little 1,000 cap rooms, but yes. But no, it's been great, and the partnerships keep growing and growing, and now we're growing even more in the Japanese space. So it's been great. So,
I want to take this slightly off topic for a second, just because something I've always been curious about when it comes to K-pop, and I always told myself, if I ever talk to somebody who knows about this industry, they may have some insight on this. So I'm an entertainment lawyer, and I often get acquainted with just the economics of what my clients deal with, particularly when they're in 4-piece bands. And when I think about how much money they have coming in, I'm always like, God, how are they going to find a way to split this 4 ways and still eat? And then when I see a K-pop group, and some of these K-pop groups are 7-piece acts or 9-piece acts, my first thought when I ever see a music video and there's 9 artists up there, I'm like, how do they split that pie 9 ways? Can you give us any insight into the economics of this? Like when you get these like very, very large K-pop bands, like do they get to eat? Is there enough money there for everybody?
Well, I mean, look at Triple S. They have 24 members. I mean, we've got
Come on.
this AKB48 had what 81 members or something like that. Some guy
That's
48
almost
members.
two.
You know,
81. That's a Philharmonic, man.
yeah. So it's just it's very different in the Asian space of how things work economically, and like the legal aspect and like the divisional aspect, like you were asking about, is nowhere near the same as the Western side of things. Like their contracts are still owned by record labels and investors, and they're paid salaries and they're paid, you know, X amount of dollars, and there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars in investment into these artists. That's why they get so big so fast. And it's just a different space, like where that artist gets a set amount, they get bonuses if things turn profitable through the course of their careers, and you know their expenses are paid, you know, if they have their, you know, apartments and their food and lodging, and of course when they tour things get paid for. So it's just a different model than everything else, and the big risk takers are usually the management and the labels that take all those risks. So
I mean, are they? I mean, do they get like royalties and stuff? Or are they just like W-2 employees getting a regular paycheck?
they're like a W-2 employee getting a paycheck. So it's
Okay.
the like I said, in the Asian market, most of the rights are owned by the label or the management firm. So like they're getting all of those revenues are going to come back to it, but it's very VC style. So they're investing millions and millions of dollars of capital into growing this artist into something, and they might go through 7 or 8 artists before one of them pops, and so they might be 50, 100 million in before they get to it, and then all of a sudden they start getting a return after that big artist.
So, love to talk about your experience in booking these artists. You had mentioned before that when you started digging into this industry, you found some flaws in the way that these concerts were being set up or operated, and then you tried to make some fixes to them. Can you talk a little bit about that and just talk about overall like what the difference is between like your experience booking for K-pop acts versus Western acts?
Well, the biggest difference was with the fans, which I mean, the fans in K-pop are so passionate. It's out of control how passionate these fans are. And I really, going to the shows I went to, I wanted to make sure, with my Korean partners, of course, with their insight and everything, is how do we get that fan or customer the best experience they possibly can get. I wanted the customer to say, okay, I'm as close to the artist as I can get to them without, going over a certain amount of money they're going to spend that's going to spoil the concert for them. Or I wanted, again, I'm trying to get it out the right way without giving away the secret sauce type of thing. Dynamic ticketing to where, you sit close to the stage, the ticket costs more as, sitting further away, which is very similar to the pop style of things in the Western world. But in K-pop, they never really did that. A lot of the shows were done in general admission rooms to where it was one ticket, one price, and that was it. So we kind of changed those things. Plus, some of the fans expressed that they don't like the general admission rooms. The style of the customer that comes to a K-pop show likes to have their own space. They like to know where they're going to be. They like to know those type of things. So we listened to that and just made sure most of the rooms that we have our stuff in are seated. So it's just listening to the audience and figuring out what they want. So it's kind of nice. This is the type of genre that dictates what the service is going to be, as opposed to most of the music industry stuff where it's like, we're going to tell you what to like, and then you're going to figure it out from there. So.
Well, and I guess you've sort of turned a few things on their head as I think of the music industry. What do you think? What do you think are the things that people misunderstand or don't understand about what a booking agent actually does?
Well, in the Western world or in the Asian world, because there's 2 different ways to describe that one.
Can you compare them?
Got you. In the Western world, people know what a booking agent essentially is. We're the ones that go out. We get, we get holds on the venues. We find the right venue to put these shows in. We negotiate the fees. We take care of the contract work that you as litigators are very familiar with, and where we go out and make sure we collect deposits, take ticket counts, making sure the tickets are selling, do the setup with everything, making sure that all of that's happening. In the Asian world, the word booking agent doesn't exist. So they don't have booking agents. They're used to just having promoters reach out directly to them and then offering them shows and then paying for everything. So we're slowly teaching them the Western style of using an agent like myself, and showing them that there can be more profitable ways of doing it while using an agent to make sure that their fees stay up, that they get paid for everything, and that their needs are all met while they're on the road. That's essentially the difference between booking agent styles.
That's wild. And in the Western world, like I'm thinking of the indie artists that listen to this show. When is it important for an artist to start contacting booking agents? Should they start early? Is there a certain threshold of profitability that the artist should already have before they reach out to a booking agent? When's the sweet spot, or where's the sweet spot?
It's such a crazy question because and it's a great question because I don't even know how to answer that, because some bands are just incredible bands and they draw 3 people a night and they're ready to have an agent right away because some agent's going to get crazy passionate and book them like crazy, and then hopefully get the attention of a label or get the attention of a management team that's going to really help them out. Some bands need more development. They need to be a local for a lot longer, figure out how to actually figure out what their show is going to be, and then present that to be an agent or to an agency, or seek out label deal or management. In the country space, you don't necessarily need an agent right away. You need to figure out where your path is, what kind of music you're writing, what style that you're going to work in. In the rock and metal space, honestly, like figuring out how to get to the masses is a lot better than just going on and booking a tour and playing to 5 people a night. It's a weird space to be in. But I'll say this: if you're good enough, an agent's going to find you, just like a manager's going to find you or a label's going to find you, because some fan is going to tell some person, and that person's going to tell another person that's going to get around that you're a band that they need to be working with or an artist that they need to find. Seeking out an agent, though, I will say this: be prepared. Don't send an email that says, I want you to book me, and then that's your only piece of that email. That's I'm going to hit delete every single time I get those, which sucks to say that, but it's true.
What information would you want to see from that artist?
I want to see preparedness. I want to see if you're good enough to write an email, that means that you're serious about your art, your art. You don't have to be a Fortune 1000 artist to do this. You can be, Joe Schmo, it doesn't matter. But run your band or run your craft like you're running a business for yourself. Present your product like you want it to be presented to other people. Don't just hit randomly up with some three-word email that says, book me now or whatever. Those don't get answered. So,
Trevor, you spoke earlier about some of the things that from some of the Western music industry values that you have taught to the folks in the K-pop industry to make that operation more effective and efficient. Do you think that there's any lessons that the West might learn from the K-pop industry, whether it's on the business side or maybe the way that artists promote themselves, that they could learn some lessons from K-pop?
I mean, K-pop are the kings. Like they are absolutely the kings of promotion. They are, they know how, they have mastered social media. They have mastered YouTube. They have mastered everything to get an artist out. Like, just an example, in K-pop, I have an artist that literally debuted a month ago, and they're already worth 2,000 tickets a night. They've only been a band for a month. Wow. And it's the most amazing thing in the world. And it's because their social media teams behind them, but they spend millions doing this. The thing is, for these developing artists, go out there, find your path, find your brand. That's the best way to do it. The example from the Asian space, even like the Japanese are incredible at social media. So, all the way down to the little small artists. Like I'm getting on a tangent, but like it just stay focused on your product and find the outlets to connect with the audience that you're trying to connect with. So,
I mean, it's a tangent, but I want to stay on this tangent. Like, what are the concrete lessons that an indie artist might learn from K-pop? Because we can't just say spend the amount of money that K-pop record labels are spending on their artists, because an indie artist can't do that. But are there any sort of low budget lessons that we can learn from that industry that an indie artist can apply to their career?
Yeah, just figure out how to connect with your fan base. More content does not mean connecting with your fan base. Like that's a misconception. Like if you post 17 times a day, you're going to get everybody with you. No, they're just going to be white noise because you might not have a message or you might not have a product that people want to listen to or want to, grasp onto. So find a message. Again, K-pop, they have fandom where they come up with their fandom names, or they come up with, a certain merch drop that's going to, be cool and effective because they only run it for 3 days and that's it. Or, the glow rods are a huge thing in the K-pop space, which are so collectible and they're nuts. But like that's at a larger scale. At a smaller scale, if you're a brand new artist, you're starting out, you just have to find your connection to the audience. Like you guys, like on Twitch, or if you're on YouTube and you're just running stories every day, or if you can do, TikTok's a huge marketing space. If you can connect with people and you can get followers, it doesn't always necessarily mean ticket sales though. So you have to figure out how to get people to buy into your product and your brand. And it's different for everybody. I could tell you guys a secret sauce, but then I'd be Clive Davis, and I'm not him. So, but yeah, I mean, you have to find your own niche and your own space to make sure that people grasp onto what you're doing and love your music that you're producing.
Appreciate your perspective on that. And since we're talking about secret sauce, let's see if we can get some of Dynamic Talent's secret sauce here. What does your agency try to do differently from some of the other players out there to deliver something special for your audience?
Also a fun question, because I really like this one. So what we're doing different than, let's say, I call them the corporate agencies, as I don't call them majors or corporates. You're not getting, your 7 assistants that you're going to contact. You're not getting, multiple different divisions of people you're going to talk to. You're talking directly to us, the agents. We run lean and mean. We make sure that our people are very attentive. We're super, super focused on paperwork, making sure our paperwork is down pat. Everything's routed properly. Everybody's in contact. We're making sure ticket sales are set up properly. Like we do above and beyond what it is. We have there's a thing called a tour book. It's essentially where you get all your contracts, all your offer sheets, all your routing, paperwork, everything. It's pretty much mandatory for every single band that we work with, all the way down to if you drop 5 tickets to 500,000 tickets, it doesn't matter. So, and it's something we pride ourselves on, that, and also our agency, we don't pick up artists just to have them on the roster, which a lot of agencies do. They just sit there, they hold on to them because they might have a little something going and they'll wait for them to pop. If you're on our agency, you're working. Like you're going to go work. You're not just going to sit there and wait for something. So that's essentially what we're doing.
Love it. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting dynamictalent.com. Our guest has been Trevor Swenson, the CEO of Dynamic Talent International. This has been a pleasure. I've learned so much more about K-pop now, and I'm glad that I get to put a little bit of business knowledge behind this genre of music that I find myself enjoying more and more. So I appreciate you for that, and just all of the expertise that you brought. Before we let you go, sir, we got one last question for you. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Man, that's a tough one too. I would just say keep at it. Like it's finding something different. If you do the exact same thing that everybody's doing, you're never going to break out of that shell. Do something different. There's a really great quote in what movie is it? The Cadillac Records. That's what it is. Where he's sitting there and they're starting to get returns back on records because they all sound exactly the same. And Adrian Brody just goes, "You guys got to start doing something different, because if you keep doing the same shit, we're never going to make it." So that's the only thing I can say, is do something different. Don't fit into an envelope. Be different.
Well, that's certainly been the mantra of your career. You've never wanted to do things the way everybody else has, and it's certainly paying off for what you got going on. Congrats on all your success. Our thanks to Trevor Swenson and Zach Sloan. Thanks to producer Lauren, and thanks to all of you viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Ed.
Break